These two Craftsman table saws have an inherent design flaw that I really think you need to know about before you're going to go through and make a purchase, especially if this is your first table saw. So let me dive on in and show you the details of what I'm talking about here. This is not something you want to buy. For comparison, to show you where this design flaw does not exist, I have this DeWalt table saw and I have the SawStop Compact. All of the saws that you see in this video were paid for by me out of my own pocket, so there are no sponsorships here. Let's dive on in and I'll show you what these design flaws look like. Apart from the relatively poor build quality of the $150, $250 table saw, both of these Craftsman table saws, the 8 1/4 inch and 10 inch versions, have this design with the riving knife where it can be raised or lowered. What I figured out is that by raising or lowering the riving knife, you can potentially run into a scenario where the riving knife can be lowered below the saw blade and it wouldn't even be utilized during a cut. So that would essentially render the riving knife non-functional, which is a big safety hazard. So with this Craftsman table saw, there is this adjustment lever right down here to the right, if you're looking at it from this way, of the riving knife. And this lever can be engaged or disengaged so that the riving knife can be raised or lowered, like so. You want to have the riving knife high enough so that it's actually functional during your cuts and it does what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, it can be lowered to the point where it doesn't become functional. So I have it in its lowest position here, and I'll put the cover back on. So I have the piece of wood here. We have about a tooth above the piece of wood, which is the height I would set it to. If I'm feeding this piece of wood through, you can see that it easily turns. That's dangerous. The whole purpose of this riving knife is to make sure that this piece of wood does not turn in on this. Because as you're pushing it through, if it starts to come in on itself, this blade turns and grabs it and pulls it up, and it sends it flying back at you. There are a lot of videos here on YouTube. I'll put a clip or two on screen now where this has happened to people. People have ran tests, and it becomes a very dangerous situation. Here's this from another angle, just so you can see it a little bit better. Table saw fence here would be feeding the wood through just like this. Still have just a tooth above the workpiece. You can see back here, the riving knife is below flush. The riving knife does absolutely nothing to prevent this piece of wood from getting pulled inwards. So essentially, the riving knife is disengaged on the back side now. This is not a safe cut, especially for someone who is a beginner and someone who is not experienced with working with table saw, who generally I would think that this table saw is marketed towards given the price point. So let me show you, for comparison, let me show you on this DeWalt DWE 7391RS. I think that's the model number. So taking this off, I have an aftermarket blade in this one because this is a saw I use regularly. See, this riving knife is a fixed one that extends well high enough to actually function correctly. So just if we lowered this back down to about a tooth or so above where this block of wood is, you can see the tooth there. You can see that this riving knife in the rear is still functional. So there's no way for this board to turn back in on itself, which that is the whole point of the riving knife, is to keep the wood from turning back in. It's probably not a fair comparison between a $1,200–1,300 SawStop Compact compared to like a $250 Craftsman, but just to reemphasize the point on what a good riving knife design is, or at least a sufficient design, I should say, I wanted to show you this. This riving knife extends well above the blade here, which, again, if we put a workpiece to where we got just a little bit of a tip of the blade above it, it's very clear that this riving knife will not allow this piece of wood to turn in on itself. What's slightly different about the saw stop design is that technically this riving knife is removable. So you could take this out, still technically operate the saw, not a good idea. However, the purpose of this being removed is so that you can access the safety mechanism that's unique to the saw stop. Now, if you don't know what that is, you can go check out some other videos online that go more in depth on the saw stop. One of the best alternatives out there is to go on Facebook Marketplace and check out some of the used table saws that they have on there. There might be one of these, there might be a rigid, there might be even an older Craftsman that actually has a solid riving knife on it. But go on there, check out some of those, go see it in person before committing to buy, and just check out some of the safety features on it and make sure it's generally up to date with what the standard is nowadays. Anyways, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.